There's no way that these teachers could leave these kids alone. Let's get into it. And the movie I'm getting into today is Class of 1984. This movie was released in 1982. It's rated R. And it was made on a budget of $4.3 million. And upon release, it made in the $30 million range. So it was a big hit for Mark Lester. Mark Lester directed this film. He came up with the idea for it. And Mark Lester is mostly known for Commando, which is an action classic for most of us. He also did Firestarter. He's who they brought in after they fired Carpenter from the film. And he also did Showdown in Little Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee. And he also did a sequel to this movie later on called Class of 1999. I have not seen the movie in years, so I'm not going to get into that one. But also most notably for this film was written by Tom Holland. Tom Holland was the writer and director of Fright Night, which is a classic. And you can see Roddy McDowall's in this film, and Roddy McDowall plays Peter Vincent in Fright Night. So obviously Tom Holland, like Roddy McDowall in this film, brought him over on that one. Plus, Tom Holland directed the original Child's Play, and he was one of the writers on Psycho 2, which was a fantastic sequel to Hitchcock's classic. And he directed Thinner. He directed some other things, but Thinner's another one that's notable to me. Now, in this film, we got Perry King as Andrew Norris. We got the great Roddy McDowall as Terry, another teacher at the school. Timothy Van Patten plays the head gang leader, Peter Stegman. And Michael J. Fox is in an early film role as Arthur. Now, I just watched this last night again for the first time in a while. I own a Blu-ray from Scream Factory. It's a fantastic Blu-ray. I think it's still available. If you don't, it's definitely worth buying. If you've seen the film, it's definitely worth buying. But it's also available, I'm sure, on streaming services as well. I was watching a making of documentary, and Mark Lester said he basically got the idea for this film from true stories that he read about back in the late 70s, early 80s. And there's one scene in particular, which we'll get into in a little bit, that he said he had to have in the film because he says it's true. I don't know. I didn't research it much, but I'm assuming it is. And basically this movie is Andrew, Perry King's character, moves to the inner city to teach this school, this troubled school. And we see him pulling up to the school right in the beginning of the film, opening shot. And there's graffiti all over the walls. And he starts walking in. He notices other teacher with his briefcase open. It's Roddy McDowall's character, Terry. And there's a handgun in the briefcase. And Roddy McDowall's kind of shuffling through some papers, puts them back in, closes it. And Perry King's character stops him and goes, "Is that really necessary?" And Roddy McDowall looks at him and goes, "Where have you been teaching?" And he goes, "Nebraska." He goes, "Well, here, you'll see in time, here it's very necessary." And they start walking in. And as they walk in, you can see all the kids got to go through metal detectors. And we get our first shot of this punk gang. And I'm not just saying punk gangs because the kids are punks, because they are. But they're really, in this movie, they're really immersed in the culture of punk. They even go to a punk club. They dress like a punk band, kind of. Just immersed in that culture. Matter of fact, in the opening song of this movie was written and performed by Alice Cooper. Anyway, they get into the school, and he's the new music teacher. And Roddy McDowall's character is kind of giving the ropes to school about how, there's a gang there, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on. You got to be careful, watch your back. And Roddy McDowall's character is a science teacher in the school. And when he gets to Perry King's character immediately gets introduced to the gang up close and personal when he gets to class, because they're in there. And Timothy Van Patten's character, Peter Stegman's the leader of this gang. And he has a little confrontation with him, kicks them out of class, says, "I don't want you in here," and he starts teaching. Well, this is the catalyst for them to start messing with him. They show up at his house that night, and he goes up to the car, and they throw red paint on him. So it starts cascading from here, folks. This is basically how this movie goes. One act leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, until we get to the end. And as the movie goes on, Andrew is getting through to his students in his class. He has some good kids there, and they're interested in music, and they want to perform. And Michael J. Fox's character, who's this good kid, doesn't want to get involved, doesn't want to rat on anybody, who just wants to be left alone. And he's in the bathroom with another boy he's friends with. And his friend's buying drugs off these guys. And he snorts the drugs, whatever it is. They don't say what it is. You assume it's coke or something. Who knows? And Michael J. Fox isn't for it, but he hangs around to make sure his friend's safe. And they leave the bathroom. And his friend starts tripping out. He goes outside. He climbs the flagpole out front. and starts yelling to the school, and all the kids are pouring out, and the kid falls, lets go of the flagpole, hits the ground, and he's dead. And not too far long after this, the cops show up, or the teacher, Andrew, goes up to Stegman in the bathroom and throws him against the pole and says he's going to freaking kill him if he doesn't leave him and his wife alone and the other kids. And Stegman looks at him and goes, okay, teach. And he goes over to the mirror and smashes his head in the mirror, smashes his head on the hand dryer and onto the sink, and he's bleeding all down his face. And he basically, Andrew's standing there like in shock, like what the hell's going on? And Stegman grabs his hand and rubs it across his face. Now he has blood all over his hands. Just as his security guard walks in, it looks like he beat the shit out of him. He set him up. And this is where we find out Andrew goes to where Stegman lives to talk to his mother about what's going on, because he realizes this boy is very troubled and there's issues here. And his mom doesn't want to hear it, blows him off. And we also find out Stegman's a rich kid. He doesn't need to be doing what he's doing, but he is because he likes it. We also find out that his mom's single because his dad had passed away. And as he's leaving, Stegman says something through the intercom as he's leaving through the entrance, and Andrew snaps and goes down to the garage, finds Stegman's car, which is this nice car, and fucking starts plowing it into the cement pillars in the garage and wrecks the shit out of it and leaves. And this is what starts really getting bad. Arthur's character, Michael J. Fox, gets stabbed in a lunch brawl that they have set up by the gang, and they have one of the members stab him in the stomach. So he's in the hospital. And at this point, they walk into school the next morning, and Roddy McDowall's character and Perry King are talking, and the security guard goes to Roddy McDowall, we have a problem. You need to go up to your lab right away. We have a problem. And Roddy McDowall's character kept rabbits and other animals in his classroom, live animals. And the kids broke in and killed all the animals and strung them up all over the room. And he's visibly upset. But he goes, I'm okay. The next day, as Andrew's walking into school, or walking down a hallway, one of the security guards get him and the principal and go, you got to come upstairs right away. We have a problem. And here, Roddy McDowall has snapped. And he's great in this scene. He's great through the whole movie, but this scene really sells the whole movie. This is probably the most important scene in the whole movie. He's been pushed to the point where he's sick of this shit, sick of this gang, and he wants to be able to teach these kids and for them to learn. And they walk in, Andrew volunteers to go in, and there's Roddy McDowall teaching the class at gunpoint. He's holding the handgun right at him, and he's teaching them. And he's going up to each gang member. He goes up to the first gang member and goes, asks him a question and points the gun right at his head, and the gang member's visibly shaken. And he answers correctly, goes, I never thought I'd hear you answer a question right in my life. And here we are. Is this what it took me to teach you at gunpoint? He goes over to the girl in the gang, does the same thing, and then finally he ends with Stegman. And he points the gun right at his head and he cocks it. And Stegman answers wrong, and he goes, that's such a shame. It's such a shame. And you don't know if he's actually going to shoot him or not. Andrew steps up and grabs the gun, and the gun goes off up in the ceiling, and the kids clear the room. So we never get to see where he was going to go with that, but it's a really great scene, and Roddy McDowall really sells it. And then Roddy McDowall that night follows the kids to this punk club, and when they come out, he tries to run them over with his car. Unfortunately, he wrecks and the car blows up. He gets killed. And this is where we get to the end of the movie. This is where the violence is going to go through the roof here. Andrew there's a concert about to take place in the concert hall at school, and he has all the kids there, and his wife, this is a point of contention for me in the whole movie. His wife comes off as just not very smart. Like, he tells her several times to go stay with your mom. She's pregnant. It's not safe here. And she never leaves. Well, but he does something stupid. He leaves her home alone, says, be at the concert hall by 8. That's when it's going to start. And he goes to the school. She's at home by herself getting ready. The gang break in the house, gang rape her, take pictures of it, and then take her with them to the school. Andrew's about to start the concert, and one of the kids comes up with the Polaroid, hands it to him, and he sees what it was, and then he takes off out of the room and starts chasing the gang through the other part of the school. He gets his ass kicked, but this is where he snaps and decides he's going to kill these kids. And he kills them in different ways, different graphic ways. It's very graphic. I'm not going to get into it. You got to see the movie. If you've never seen it, you got to see the movie to find out. Then we get our final confrontation with Stegman is on the roof with his wife. he ends up kicking Stegman's ass. And Stegman falls through this window or this skylight, and he's hanging on this rope. So he goes, "Come on, Teach, you got to help me. Help me, I don't want to die." And for a second, Andrew's going to help me. He reaches his hand out to help him. And Stegman grabs a knife and tries to stab him. And Andrew punches him right in the face. Stegman falls. One of the ropes wrap around his neck. He falls through this other skylight above the concert hall, and he gets hung right in front of everybody. And that's the end of the movie. It's a really good exploitation film. It's very violent. It's sleazy. It's definitely, like, I just reviewed The Principal last week, and I really like The Principal, but this movie's more violent, definitely. If you've never seen it, it's worth checking out. There's a lot of violence. It's graphic in points. It's a little cheesy at times, and the wife comes off as just dumb, which is unfortunate. But I really do like this film. I would give it an 8 out of 10. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a class of 1984. And that's all I have to say. 8 out of 10 for me. Have you ever seen this movie? If you have, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this movie or think of it. If you don't mind, hit the thumbs up for me. I greatly appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. Join me here. And you all stay safe. Take care of yourselves. And I'll be back soon with another review. Have a great day.